Madu Yujin, a salaryman, trudges through the sweltering city on another exhausting day. The oppressive sun beats down on him, and he groans that it's just too hot. He curses his superiors, who demand he wear a jacket in this suffocating weather. He laments not paying for gasoline, wishing he had taken his car instead. His company is an exploitative black company, but he lacks the confidence to quit. His life is a miserable cycle of work, commute, and sleep, barely surviving. He spots a bookstore and decides to check for the latest releases inside. His only recent form of entertainment has been reading isekai light novels. He loves reading about ordinary heroes who gain cheat abilities and become powerful. He daydreams about a goddess whisking him away to a game-like fantasy world. With a heavy sigh, he remembers the work he still has to do. From the shadows, a chilling voice whispers that it has finally found him. A sudden flash of light startles him, his eyes wide with shock. In the distance, he sees a small, cloaked figure perched on a wall. His mind, addled by the heat, wonders if he is seeing a ghost. Before he can process it, the figure lunges, leaving him to wonder what's happening. An invisible force slams into him, sending him reeling through the air. As he falls through a voice apologizes for the suddenness of all. A childlike god appears, announcing it will now send him to another world. He clutches his tie in disbelief, certain this must be some kind of lie. He wonders if this divine being is about to give him a real isekai experience. He dismisses it as a dream from heatstroke, but the god insists it's real. The god gleefully offers him a trip to a popular fantasy world of magic and skills. Realizing this is real, he eagerly asks if he will receive cheat abilities. A sharp-dressed man appears, coldly informing him he will receive no such powers. His hopes are instantly shattered, leaving him completely stunned and confused. The god offers to send him back to his reality if this is too much for him. He knows he can't just forget this and return to his miserable old life. The god explains it chose him because he was so unhappy with his life. The god's directness leaves him utterly speechless and horrified. He recalls his student days, when he was obsessed with fantasy and virtual worlds. He knows that being sent to a new world without power is a death sentence. He scoffs, thinking they sound just like one of his old, terrible bosses. His inner salaryman snaps, and he furiously demands they give him a cheat ability. The blond man questions why Yujin thinks he, of all people, was chosen. He lists Yujin's weaknesses: no skills, no experience, just a weak body. He accuses them of sending him to his death for their own sick amusement. The god denies having such cruel hobbies and decides to begin a negotiation. Seeing an opening, Yujin's eyes gleam with the determination to get a good deal. They haggle, with Yujin demanding skills and boons on top of being de-aged. The god offers him a single, special, handmade gift, a status screen. He is outraged, demanding something more impressive than just a status screen. He screams that the ability is useless, as it won't make him any stronger. The god sighs, utterly exasperated by his constant complaints. Its patience gone, the god yells at him to be quiet and shoves him away. It muses that, in some ways, he is the most blessed existence of all. With a sinister smile, the god wonders if Yujin will awaken or simply break. As he falls, he curses the acorn-headed god for its terrible gift. He lands with a thud in a dense forest, angry at being dumped there. The truth hits him. He's an RPG enthusiast, not a wilderness survivalist. He tells himself this is no time to be depressed and snaps himself out of it. His expression hardens with a new, grim resolve to face his situation. He sits up, remembering that he did manage to get de-aged into a child. He examines his hands, confirming that his body is indeed that of a child. He sighs, thinking he might have been too greedy during the negotiations. All his passionate negotiating only resulted in a younger body and a status screen. He recalls the pathetic negotiations of his old salaryman life. He shakes his head, telling himself that this kind of thinking is useless now. He resolves to use what he has, remembering it's too early to give up. He knows he needs shelter, water, and food before it gets dark. He decides to start by checking the contents of his briefcase. He finds a flashlight, screwdrivers, a calculator, and other office supplies. He notes that his leather dress shoes are terrible for running in the wilderness. He decides his clothes will have to do for now and prepares himself for survival. Starving and furious, he tightens his belt and vows to make the god regret this. He pauses, his attention caught by something strange in his peripheral vision. He realizes the small white dot at the edge of his vision is the activation button. He squints, focusing his intent on the strange white dot. With a sudden sound, a massive screen materializes directly in front of him. He yells out in shock as the screen appears, completely blocking his view. His eyes are wide with amazement at the reality of this new power. The screen vanishes, leaving him to realize he can't see anything with it up. He stands there, momentarily flustered by the sudden appearance and disappearance. He realizes it's a convenient system, but blocking his vision is a stupid design. He looks at his stats, noting that his name and title are currently blank. He scrolls down to the skill list, a wide, excited grin on his face. He is amazed to see over 100 different skills, from combat to support magic. He sees it's a familiar, game-like layout with prerequisites for advanced skills. He deduces he'll need to use skill points, likely earned from leveling up. His diligent nature takes over, and he decides to memorize his initial stats. A sudden rustling in the nearby bushes immediately puts him on high alert. He whips around, his body tensing as he prepares for whatever is coming. A muscular, white rabbit with a single, sharp horn bursts from the undergrowth. He panics, realizing he was so distracted by the status screen, he let his guard down. He calms himself, knowing he can't afford to fight recklessly if he wants to win. He observes his enemy, noting it's about the size of a large rabbit. He knows the horn is the real danger. A single hit would mean certain death. He decides he needs a safer, more reliable method than a direct charge. He knows the horn is its only weapon, and he plans his strategy around it. He picks up his suit jacket, preparing to use it as a diversion. The rabbit lowers its head and charges, just as he predicted it would. With a determined look, he holds the jacket out, ready for the impact. The rabbit's eyes lock onto the large, moving piece of fabric. He readies himself, knowing his next move will decide the fight. He yells that the rabbit is fast, but he's faster, dodging out of the way. He successfully throws the jacket to one side, narrowly avoiding the charge. The rabbit's horn tears through the empty suit jacket with incredible force. He thinks that if it can't hit him, its peripheral vision must be poor. He declares that since the charge attack was predictable, his next move will be too. He leaps onto the distracted rabbit, smothering it with the now ruined jacket. With a cry of anguish, Eugen laments the sacrifice of his expensive custom suit. He flings the jacket aside, a dark decoy to lure the charging horned rabbit. Leaping onto the distracted beast, he wrestles it to the ground with his full weight. He snarls in frustration, demanding the thrashing creature stop struggling beneath him. Holding his blood-splattered tie, he declares that this will be the finishing blow. He roars that the beast shouldn't dare underestimate his expensive, modern fiber necktie. Collapsed atop the rabbit's corpse, he pants heavily, wondering if it's finally over. He clutches his chest, gasping for breath as the adrenaline begins to fade away. Utterly exhausted from a fight, he sits against a tree as a light rain falls. The world fades to black as the immediate danger passes, leaving only his thoughts. He knows he cannot celebrate his first victory. He must find shelter for the night. His eyes land on a massive, gnarled tree, wondering if he can possibly climb it. He recalls a clever workplace trick, deciding to use his belt as a climbing aid. With his belt hooked around a branch, he begins to haul his body up the trunk. He curses his rejuvenated body, infuriated by the lack of any real cheat power. Panting with effort, he finally reaches a high branch overlooking the forest floor. From his vantage point, he sees no sign of a town, not even the forest's edge. The daunting view shows nothing but an endless, unbroken sea of green trees. He stares out at the vast wilderness, his determination slowly starting to build. He thinks of the smug god, vowing to make that acorn bastard pay for this. Despite the despair, a flicker of hope remains as he clutches his dirt-stained shirt. He spots the setting sun, realizing it gives him a much-needed sense of direction. His eyes catch a subtle break in the canopy, guessing it might be a river. He reasons that a river might lead out to a plain and then a human village. He had felt only despair, but now a small glimmer of a future opens before him. A determined grin spreads across his face as he vows to conquer this sea of trees. He wakes with a jolt, the pleasant dream of a happy, ice-sky life instantly shattered. Slumped uncomfortably in the tree, he wonders if the brief fantasy was a dream. He groans in pain, realizing how awful sleeping on a branch is and missing his bed. Back on the ground, he sets his new priorities: find the river and then find food. He checks his watch, realizing it can still help him keep track of the time. He marvels at his multi-function, solar-powered watch, a true relic of modern wisdom. Leaving his briefcase behind, he climbs, focused only on what lies directly ahead. A small bird suddenly flutters past, startling him from his concentrated thoughts. He notices with curiosity that the bird seems to be leading him somewhere. The bird pecks at a cluster of strange fruit, suggesting that it might be edible. He reasons that if the bird can safely eat it, then he probably can too. Taking a deep breath, he takes a large, desperate bite of the unfamiliar fruit. His eyes sparkle with pure delight as the sweet, juicy flavor fills his mouth. With his first food source secured, he frantically gathers as much fruit as he can. Munching happily, he feels that he is finally making some tangible progress. He decides to check his status screen, wondering what this new information could be. His eyes widen as he sees a new skill gathering with a rising experience bar. He understands that he gained the skill simply by picking the fruit from the bush. He connects the dots. Defeating the rabbit must have given him physical arts experience. He throws his arms up in a joyous cheer, realizing this world truly works like a game. With a confident smile, he clenches his fist, now certain that he can survive. A sudden rustling from the nearby bushes shatters his moment of triumph. He peeks through the foliage, wondering if another monster has appeared so soon. He sees a small, humanoid silhouette and knows that something is definitely there. He readies his screwdrivers, thinking it should be fine to kill this humanoid thing. A grotesque goblin emerges, its mouth stained with the blood of its previous meal. The goblin spots him and lunges forward with a terrifying, guttural shriek. Eugen's small, terrified silhouette is reflected in the creature's wide, predatory eye. The goblin closes the distance in a blur, its sharp, yellowed teeth bared to attack. Eugen cries out in alarm as the monster is suddenly upon him in the tall grass. He dodges, but the goblin's filthy claws still manage to tear across his back. Reacting instantly, he thrusts his screwdriver deep into the goblin's empty eye socket. The creature collapses backward into the grass as Eugen recoils from the fatal blow. He clutches his weapon, admitting to himself that his thinking had been completely naive. He realizes with horror that his own status is even lower than a common goblin's. He understands this is no mere NPC. It's a living thing trying to kill him. He must abandon his naive thoughts and be prepared to kill for certain every time. He stands over the corpse, the grim reality of the bloody fight sinking in. He collapses to his knees, overwhelmed by the brutal life-or-death struggle. His hand trembles as he looks at the dead goblin's long, sharp claws. Panting and bleeding, he grimly accepts that this is now his harsh reality. He leans against a tree for support, the fresh wound on his back stinging sharply. He thinks that if he hadn't been overconfident, the fight would have gone smoother. He resolves to make sure this nasty wound doesn't get any worse from infection. He must remember that this is not a game world. He has to be careful. He notices that the goblin dropped something on the ground when it died. His eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the gruesome object lying in the grass. It's a severed human arm and a gauntlet, a sign that people die easily here. A dark, malevolent aura suddenly fills the clearing, swirling around him. The ground begins to tremble violently, the trees shaking from an unseen force. A powerful tremor runs through his back as the shaking grows even more intense. He is thrown completely off balance by the violent, localized earthquake. The ground cracks and heaves, sending him tumbling helplessly to the forest floor. He looks up in terror from the ground, wondering what is possibly happening. The earth splits open directly in front of him, dust and debris flying into the air. He scrambles backward, shouting in alarm as a large shape begins to emerge. A huge, mole-like creature bursts from the ground, crying out a bizarre "Mokyu." His first, absurd thought is that the giant monster is actually kind of cute. He realizes this must be the attacker, frantically wondering how he can fight it. The Mokyu gathers a swirling vortex of dark energy, clearly preparing a magic attack. Not knowing its range or power, he decides his only option is to defend himself. He braces his briefcase just as the creature unleashes a powerful blast of energy. The impact scorches his makeshift shield as he cries out in searing pain. He sees the attack carve a trench. A direct hit would have meant certain death. He knows he can't block again, and dodging is impossible, so he must act now. With a fierce roar of defiance, he drops his shield and charges straight forward. The Mokyu seems surprised by the small human's sudden, aggressive charge. It lets out a confused "Q" as Eugen closes the distance with impossible speed. Eugen leaps into the air, delivering a powerful kick directly to the monster's head. The impact is brutal, snapping the creature's thick neck with a sickening crack. The monster's body is thrown sideways, landing in a completely lifeless heap. He lands, panting, realizing he had to crush it before it could attack again. A familiar blue screen appears before his tired eyes, announcing he has leveled up. He collapses against a tree, gasping that he's finally level 2 in this brutally hard world. At his absolute limit, he laments his filthiness and desperate need for water. Suddenly, his head snaps up as a faint, hopeful sound reaches his ears. He gasps, scrambling forward through the undergrowth with renewed purpose. Through the trees, he sees a glint of light, wondering if it can really be true. A single desperate roar of pure joy echoes through the forest. Water! He leaps through the air in a moment of sheer bliss, his briefcase flying loose. With a tremendous splash, he plunges into the cool, life-giving river. Later, his tattered suit hangs drying on a branch near a small, secluded waterfall. He cups his hands, greedily drinking the fresh, clean water from the stream. He confirms his good fortune, spotting plump fish swimming in the clear depths. The carcass of the horned rabbit lies nearby, a ready source of meat. Surveying his new camp, he realizes all his preparations are finally complete. A small smirk plays on his lips as a new, ambitious idea takes shape. Holding a fish for modesty, he declares it's time to test out fire magic. He settles into a hollow between large tree roots, his bed for the night. He brings up his status screen, ready to finally spend his hard-earned skill points. He studies the screen, hoping he has enough points to acquire a useful skill. He decides to spend his level-up points to acquire the fire magic skill. His face lights up with childlike excitement as he invests another precious point. He clenches his fists in a triumphant "all right," thrilled with his new power. The skill description appears, but he's slightly confused by its specific wording. He imagines casting a classic fireball, though he admits he doesn't fully understand it. He decides that since he has acquired the skill, he might as well try it out. He strikes a cool, confident pose, pointing his finger with grim determination. His expression becomes one of intense focus as he prepares to cast his first spell. He shouts the incantation, commanding the fireball to launch at his target. From his perch in a tree, nothing happens. The forest remains stubbornly silent. He strokes his chin thoughtfully, wondering if he miscalculated the launch command. He tries a new gesture, pointing like a gun as he shouts the command again. He reasons that perhaps the shape of his hand was wrong, trying a different pose. With both hands outstretched, he desperately yells for the fireball to go. His magic fails yet again, as a fish mockingly leaps from the water below. He sighs in defeat, his shoulders slumping as the attempt proves fruitless. His frustration finally boils over, his face contorting into a manic grin of rage. He screams about wasting his 2 precious points on a completely useless skill. He takes a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down and analyze the problem. He recalls the Mokyu using magic, confused why his own skill won't activate. He sees the abbreviated chant, skill is missing, and realizes he needs the full incantation. He decides to improvise, adopting an archaic tone to follow the local customs. He pleads with the spirit of fire, begging it to lend him its power for a fireball. Once again, the forest is silent, his dramatic words having no effect at all. He laughs at his own foolishness, admitting that was a useless attempt. He tries another desperate plea, begging the spirit of fire for a ball of flame. He roars in pure frustration, furious that it's still not working. His attempts devolve into a wild, flailing dance of fire, begging for any result. His desperate shouts echo uselessly into the silent, uncaring woods. As night falls, he gives up, deciding to forget about fire magic for now. He reasons he can't know the right words since he isn't from this world. He resolves to just go to sleep, his silhouette stark against the moonlit sky. The next morning begins peacefully, with a bird chirping in the bright sun. He walks along the river, still lamenting his desire for a properly cooked meal. He spots a goblin by the water, wondering if he should start another fight. He confirms the creature's identity and prepares himself for the coming battle. With a hardened gaze, he readies his flashlight and screwdriver as weapons. He calmly faces the monster, acknowledging he's becoming quite used to this. He lunges forward without hesitation, smashing his flashlight into the goblin's face. He notes with grim satisfaction that he's getting accustomed to these brutal fights. He decides to abandon magic and focus on survival to reach civilization. A notification suddenly appears, announcing he has reached level 3 and learned a skill. He stares in stunned silence, utterly bewildered by this unexpected development. He frantically searches his status screen, looking for the new combat skill. He finally finds the lunge skill listed under the other category. Reading the skill's description, he realizes it's exactly what he's been waiting for. He stands in a clearing, ready to test his first real, tangible ability. He's confused when the skill fails to activate while he is standing still. He grimaces, a flashback to his traumatic failure with fire magic crossing his mind. He tries again while walking, and his body shoots forward in a sudden blur. He looks back in awe, amazed that this is what a real skill feels like. He notes that his mana was consumed, and he doesn't need to shout the name. He muses that while not practical now, it might become very useful someday. He smirks, realizing the only drawback is that his shoes might fly off. He decides now is the perfect time to carefully check his full status. His screen displays his name, Madhu Eugen, level 3, and his base stats. He notices pluses next to his stats, indicating bonuses from his skills. He calculates his potential growth, estimating his stats at a max level of 99. He briefly imagines a ridiculously muscular version of himself at his full potential. He puzzles over how he learned lunge when his fire magic had failed so badly. He realizes it must be a subjugation bonus from defeating the horned rabbit. He connects his actions to aptitudes: gathering, club arts, shield arts, and swimming. He deduces that the experience from monsters must be an incredibly valuable resource. He understands that the people of this world acquire skills through their daily lives. The entire system feels deeply familiar, reminding him of his old gaming addiction. He recalls his past, where his only goal was defeating any enemy he could find. He remembers how he also enjoyed the simple pleasures of that virtual world, like fishing. But in the end, he had sacrificed everything in his relentless pursuit of strength. For 6 years, he became the #1 player, hailed by all as the evil god. He reflects that it was a meaningless glory, but also the most fun he ever had. He realizes with a jolt of dread that this new world is perfectly suited to him. He slaps his own face, trying to physically snap out of the dangerous mindset. He tells himself he is an adult now and must not repeat his past mistakes. As he drifts off to sleep, he hopes that for once he might have a good dream. His new understanding of the world's mechanics completely transforms his approach to survival. He begins actively hunting the mole-like Mokyu monsters with a new strategy in mind. A Mokyu erupt from the ground with its signature, high-pitched Mokyu cry. He expertly hurls a rock, striking the creature down with a single, precise hit. He stands triumphantly over his defeated foe, his new method proven effective. He grins as a notification confirms he has reached level 5, his strategy a perfect success. He internally explains his simple but effective pebble decoy luring tactic. He muses that the Mokyu are now his most profitable source of experience points. He briefly wonders if the club-wielding goblins he fought were a rare variant. A sharp crack echoes through the forest, catching Eugen's immediate attention. He peeks from behind a tree, wondering if it's a new monster. He recoils in shock, realizing with horror that the sound is human. He hears a child scream and knows that someone is in danger. He prays desperately that he can make it in time to help. A small mole-like creature suddenly emerges from the ground ahead of him. He notes that the creature seems completely unaware of his presence. Enraged, he kicks the creature aside, yelling that it's in his way. The creature's appearance confirms his worst fears about what is happening. Peeking through the trees, he finally spots the source of the screams. He sees 2 children, a boy and a girl, fleeing for their lives. A third child, a blond boy, bravely fights off the pursuing goblins. One of the goblins wields a sword, an unexpectedly dangerous foe. The memory of the dead knight's arm flashes through his mind. Refusing to witness another death, he charges into the clearing to intervene. He yells to the boy, offering to draw the attention of 2 goblins. He is shocked to realize he cannot understand the boy's words. The blond boy stares back, equally baffled by the communication breakdown. Deciding words are useless, he readies his flashlight as a makeshift weapon. The young swordsman gives a sharp, understanding nod in response. The unlikely pair stands back to back, prepared to face the goblin horde. Eugen steels himself, confident he can handle at least 2 opponents. With a shared resolve, they both lunge forward to seize the initiative. A goblin swings its crude sword in a wide, vicious arc. Eugen narrowly ducks beneath the blade, avoiding the clumsy attack. He retaliates, smashing his heavy flashlight directly into the goblin's face. As one goblin stumbles, another lunges at him from the side. He stomps on the first goblin's head, crushing its skull brutally. Having dealt with one, he turns his attention to the next attacker. He activates his lunge skill, disappearing in a blur of motion. He reappears behind the goblin, striking it down with his flashlight. The fight takes its toll, leaving him panting from the exertion. He grits his teeth, pushing through the pain and exhaustion. Across the clearing, one of Jink's opponents is grievously wounded. Jink prepares to deliver the final blow to the stunned goblin. Eugen glances over, seeing the young swordsman has defeated one enemy. He spots another goblin sneaking up, unseen by the preoccupied boy. The goblin closes the distance, ready to strike the boy from behind. Jink lunges forward, focused entirely on the goblin in front of him. At the same instant, Eugen hurls a rock with all his might. The stone connects with a sickening crack, shattering the goblin's skull. As Jink finishes his foe, the ambusher collapses dead behind him. The 2 fighters share a look of exhausted relief after the battle. He mutters an apology, noting he secured the final, crucial blow. The children gather around him, chattering with relief and gratitude. He realizes with frustration that their words are still complete gibberish. He holds up a hand, trying to signal for them to wait. He asks them to wait a moment, hoping they can understand him. The children can only stare back, completely baffled by his behavior. He accesses his status screen to purchase a language comprehension skill. The children watch on, mystified by his strange, silent actions. He despairs, as the skill only grants him a kindergartner's vocabulary. He calms himself, deciding to invest more points to improve his fluency. He screams internally as the upgrade only raises his level to an 8-year-old. His sudden, strange outburst startles the already bewildered children. He apologizes for scaring them and reluctantly spends even more points. Mentally drained, he realizes he has spent all his accumulated points. He finally asks what happened, and Misa is surprised he can speak. They discuss his sudden ability to speak, wondering if it's a blessing. The mention of a goddess brings the child god to his mind. He asks if they live nearby, hoping to find civilization. Jink explains they were hunting horned rabbits before being chased by goblins. Their explanation quickly devolves into a chaotic argument about who is to blame. Misa insists she only followed because she trusted Jink to protect them. Jink retorts that running from a sword-wielding enemy was the only option. He listens to their childish bickering with a fond, weary smile. The lively noise is a comforting sound after days of utter solitude. He reflects on how this world has felt like a survival game. He recalls the constant fear of making a fatal mistake while alone. But now, he is no longer alone, able to talk with others. Misa notices the tears welling in his eyes and asks if he's all right. Overwhelmed with emotion, he can only manage a choked affirmation. He sheepishly explains his tears are from the relief of finding people. He asks if they can reach their town, Bizarre, before nightfall. Jink worries about Pata's stamina, but the boy insists he can manage. Eugen notes the heavy basket Pata is carrying on his back. He decides they should leave, pulling out his flashlight for the journey. The children gasp in absolute awe at the bright, steady beam of light. They excitedly ask if it's a magic tool, convinced he is a noble. Eugen is flustered by their assumption, unable to form a coherent denial. He loudly denies their claims, trying to shut down the conversation. Jink confidently takes the lead, pointing out the path back to town. With a path forward, he steps into the tall grass, ready to go. The small, newly formed party begins their journey through the darkening woods. A horned rabbit suddenly darts across their path, startling the group. Jink reacts instantly, felling the creature with a single, expertly thrown knife. He stands over his kill, pulling the knife from the small creature. He asks Pata for another blade, preparing to butcher the animal. He explains that this is a good opportunity to test a larger weapon. Eugen is completely baffled by the unfamiliar, game-like terminology. He asks if collecting means they sell the parts, which Jink confirms. Jink explains that selling monster parts is a vital source of income. The children tease him, assuming his ignorance is due to being a rich noble. Eugen silently fumes at the irony, remembering his pathetic former life. Misa comically misunderstands his mumbled Japanese, thinking it's a pet. He changes the subject, asking if the three of them are a party. Misa proudly explains their party roles: hunter, forger, and carrier. She explains that despite the danger, she gathers valuable herbs and fruits. Her family are apothecaries, and she works hard to support their business. He looks at the young girl with a newfound sense of quiet admiration. As they walk, Loki glances back, asking Misa where Pata has gone. Misa calls out for Pata, who is visibly exhausted and struggling to breathe. She runs to Pata's side, kindly telling him to take his time. The boy is utterly confused, gasping for air and unable to understand her. Pata finally catches up, profusely apologizing to Loki for being so slow. Loki asks Misa if Pata can't understand him, and she confirms it. Pata sadly explains he was told to pray to the goddess for language comprehension. Loki lets out a laugh as Pata laments his struggles with the farming skill. Loki realizes praying to a goddess is this world's version of skill point allocation. Jink quiets them, pointing out a monster lurking in the trees above. He explains that the sound-sensitive flower moles can be easily lured out. With a practiced move, he taps his knife against a tree to draw it out. A flower mole emerges, and Loki recognizes the creature he fought before. Loki compliments Jink's knowledge, and the boy proudly credits his hunter parents. He speaks with confidence about the skills his family has passed down to him. Loki asks about his future, but Jinx says he'll stick to the safer planes. The monsters here are still too strong, he admits, looking ahead with determination. Loki smiles, thinking Jinx is just being considerate of his younger companions. But Jinx's expression hardens. He must get strong quickly to support his mother. Loki is taken aback by the sudden, heavy weight of the boy's reality. He sees the children's burdens, fighting to study, to earn, and to survive. He realizes that for kids his age, this dangerous life is normal here. Loki smirks to himself, thinking he must not look like a noble after all. Jinx breaks the serious mood, cheerfully noting they haven't introduced themselves yet. Loki thinks to himself, of course, as he quickly decides on a name. Apologizing for the delay, he introduces himself with a friendly smile as Loki. He closes his eyes for a moment, thinking the name feels strangely fitting. The children's faces fill with shock as they ask if he means the Demon Lord. Standing in the dark forest, Loki can only utter a confused, huh? He recalls the smug child god, remembering he never intended to use a false name. He hadn't thought a fake name would be necessary, but things have changed. He remembers the blank status screen the god had given him as a gift. He thinks back to the raw excitement of seeing his stats rise after a fight. The memory of landing a visceral final blow on a monster was exhilarating. He recalls the thrilling discovery of this world's game-like rules and systems. He even imagined himself as a hero, casting powerful magic just like in games. He covers his face, cringing at the memory of the edgy names he once used. Looking back now, his old gamer tags were just profoundly embarrassing. And somehow, that embarrassing past has led him to this exact moment. He stares blankly, wondering aloud how he ended up mistaken for a demon lord. Jinx asks if he is a demon lord, and Misa agrees he's dressed for it. Loki is stunned, wondering if the characters from this legend are still around. He worries the meddling god summoned him specifically to be the villain. Loki thinks Jinx is getting carried away, but the boy tells him to be quiet. Trying to act casual, Loki asks them what kind of story it is. Jinx is shocked he doesn't know the legend of the Demon Lord subjugation. An epic image shows the Demon Lord, wreathed in darkness and commanding monsters. A contrasting image shows the hero, descending from the light with his holy sword. Jinx proudly proclaims it's the famous heroic tale of the hero Takuya. Loki dismisses it as a typical story of a hero fighting a demon lord. His expression freezes as he realizes the name Takuya is unmistakably Japanese. He asks who Takuya is, and Pada is horrified that he doesn't know the prince. Misa excitedly explains the hero came from another world with cheat-like powers. Loki seethes with rage, realizing the child god gave cheat skills to someone else. He asks if there are other otherworlders, and Misa mentions a rumor she heard. Misa dreams of meeting an otherworlder, completely unaware one is right there. Jinx angrily snaps that they don't have the money for such a trip. The sharp tap of Jinx's knife against the tree echoes through the woods. Jinx spots another flower mole ahead and points it out to the others. Loki immediately takes charge, coordinating their attack and assigning roles. Jinx lunges forward, his sword flashing as he cleanly dispatches his target. Loki follows his lead, bringing his screwdriver down in a deadly, efficient arc. A small smile plays on his lips. He thinks that this feeling is nice. He remembers his past, watching other gamers celebrate their shared victories. As a solo player obsessed with efficiency, he had only ever watched them. He looks at the children, his companions, and considers the idea of teamwork. A genuine smile brightens his face as he wonders about his future here. They finally burst out of the forest, shouting in triumphant relief. The four of them collapse in the tall grass, safe at last. Misa offers to help Pada, but Loki takes the heavy basket instead. Loki slings the basket over his shoulder, surprised by its weight. In the distance, he sees the warm, welcoming lights of the town. Misa beams, welcoming him to Bazart, glad that he was with them. A stern guard at the gate, Jinx's father, scolds them for being out so late. Loki is startled by the guard's sudden and imposing appearance. The children rush past the gate towards the guard with surprising speed. Misa and Pada cower behind Jink as he explains what happened to his father. Loki watches the family reunion from a distance with a neutral expression. The guard approaches, explaining that Jink told him how Loki saved them. Loki humbly insists he was lost too, but the guard won't hear it. Jink holds up the crude goblin sword as proof of their encounter. His father examines the well-made blade, impressed by its quality. He tells Loki not to be a stranger, as he is their honored savior. With a grand gesture, Jink's father officially welcomes Loki into Bizarre. Inside the town gates, Jink offers the goblin sword to Loki as a reward. Loki smiles and politely refuses, saying the sword is too big for him anyway. Jink protests loudly, insisting that it wouldn't be a fair trade. His father cuts them off, telling them to settle it at the Hunters Guild. The guard notes it's been 5 years since a goblin sword was reported. The children thank Loki one last time, calling him their noble demon Lord Savior. Loki waves back, telling them he will see them again tomorrow. Misa waves enthusiastically as she and the boys run off into the town. Alone, Loki glances at his status screen, seeing his skills have gained experience. He quickly analyzes his stats, noting his progress and lack of titles. He realizes the last hit on the mole gave him a significant experience boost. He muses that if he truly wants to get stronger, he should find companions. But he dismisses the idea, knowing his secrets make true party play impossible. He shakes his head, frustrated by the complexity of his new situation. He steels his resolve, deciding to switch gears now that he's in town. He smiles, taking in the bustling night market, ready for his new life. A cheerful vendor proudly presents his skewers, declaring that meat is what everyone truly desires. Loki eagerly orders a skewer, only to be told the price is 400 biku. His face freezes in horror as he realizes he doesn't know what a biku is. An awkward silence falls over the transaction as the reality of his poverty sinks in. The 32-year-old soul within him decides to cast aside all of his adult shame. He turns and desperately shouts for Jink, Misa, and Pada to lend him money. Loki reflects that everything was fine until he parted ways with the children. The mysterious currency called biku has left him without food or lodging. He laments that this isn't a game, as his companions comically note his broke status. Suddenly, Misa appears, having been searching for him all this time. She chides him for sleeping in a tree, saying she would have offered him a room. Loki asks where she is taking him now. Misa points grandly towards a large building, announcing it's the Hunters Guild. She urges him inside, saying Jink and Pada are already waiting for them. Inside, Loki notes that the famous request board isn't made of paper. The lively tavern within the guild presents another irresistible temptation of food. A bountiful platter of food and drink is served to a table of hungry adventurers. Misa and Loki find Jink, who complains that Pada has already started eating. Loki's eyes lock onto the delicious-looking meat skewer in Pada's hand. He prostrates himself on the table, begging Pada for the skewer with promises to repay him. The first bite is absolute bliss, and tears of pure joy stream down his face. He savors the perfect harmony of salt and spices, the ice-sky meal of his dreams. A gentle hand touches his cheek as a woman's voice praises his healthy appetite. Still lost in his meal, Loki looks up, wondering who is speaking to him. The beautiful guildmaster, Amanda, introduces herself and summons him to see her superior. Loki is stunned into silence by the sudden summons. He panics, wondering if the guildmaster is calling him out for some minor theft. His salaryman instincts kick in, and he scrambles to obey the branch manager. Amanda announces their arrival to the guildmaster, who tells them to enter. Loki steps inside the office, his heart pounding with nervous energy. He notes with curiosity that the man before him offers a left-handed handshake. The sharp-eyed man introduces himself as Yargoth, the master of the Bizarre Hunters Guild. Loki introduces himself with his new name, shaking the master's hand. Amanda serves them tea, and Loki awkwardly takes a seat. He is flustered when Amanda sits right beside him on the couch. Yargov gets straight to business, asking Loki to accept something. A bag jingling with coins is placed before him, an unexpected windfall. Yargov explains it is a reward from the town for saving the 3 children. On behalf of the mayor, Yargov bows deeply in gratitude. Loki humbly accepts the money, admitting it's a great help as he is penniless. Impressed, Yargov offers him a place in the guild, which Loki considers. Loki expresses hesitation, as he plans to leave town eventually. Yargov explains the guild is an international organization, so his registration will be valid anywhere. Loki begins to think Yargov might be a decent person, despite his high rank. Yargov notes that Loki seems to understand him perfectly. He reveals that one can discern a person's origin by the movement of their mouth. Loki is surprised that such a method of identification exists. Yargov states that Loki's speech patterns are unlike any from the surrounding countries. The guild master reveals that 2 hunters went missing in the Palmyra forest 10 days ago. He adds that one of the missing men had just acquired a brand new sword. Yargov leans forward, asking what a non-hunter like Loki was doing in the forest. The friendly atmosphere vanishes. Loki realizes he is being suspected of something terrible. He was prepared for questions, but this direct accusation catches him off guard. Knowing a lie would be exposed, he decides he has no choice but to be honest. He refuses to state his purpose, but vehemently denies any involvement in their disappearance. Yargov changes his line of questioning, asking if Loki saw or found anything. Loki recounts finding a human arm being eaten by a goblin a few days prior. Yargov grimly concludes that the hunter's survival is hopeless. Loki offers to return the recovered sword and search for the hunter's other belongings. Yargov dismisses the offer, stating the couple had no family and Loki can keep the sword. Loki is left confused and speechless by this strange turn of events. Yargov apologizes, clarifying he wasn't accusing Loki, but must consider all possibilities. With that, he declares that the conversation is over. He informs Loki that guild registration opens at noon, and more members are always welcome. With a sharp, knowing smile, Yargov says he's counting on Loki. Loki excuses himself and quietly exits the unsettling meeting. Once outside, he wonders what that intense interrogation was all about. Yargov's eyes remind him of the manipulative managing director from his old company. The whole encounter has left him deeply unnerved and confused. He questions Yargov's motives, wondering if the story was a ploy to gain his sympathy. He flashes back to a two-faced manager who is always smiling to his subordinates. He concludes Yargov is the same type, a man whose eyes don't smile. Loki completely retracts his earlier assessment. He strongly dislikes the guildmaster. In the office, Amanda notes Yargov's dissatisfaction, who muses on Loki's unusual nature. Yargov asks Amanda if she remembers the strange artifacts recovered 6 years ago. He reveals that Loki possessed a working watch, a relic from another world. Amanda recalls the other items, shoes, a watch, and a glass plate, all national secrets. Yargov notes that Loki wasn't hiding his strange possessions, which lessened his suspicion. He orders Amanda to monitor Loki, but warns her not to provoke him. Amanda agrees with a confident smile, happy to take on the assignment. Yargov muses on the mystery of why the boy would call himself a demon lord. He looks out his window, contemplating the strange new arrival in his town. He hopes Loki's presence will bring great progress to Bizarre and asks him to be gentle. The fate of Loki in this new world is just beginning to unfold. Joining the Hunters Guild seems like a necessary step for survival in this world. Yargov was a difficult man to read, leaving Loki to wonder about his own path. Though he was suspected of murder, Loki is now confident he can succeed here. He returns to the children, who eagerly ask him how the meeting went. With a triumphant chuckle, Loki pulls out the heavy bag of coins. He dramatically presents his newfound wealth to his stunned friends. Jink and Misa shout in unison, amazed by the sheer power of gold. Loki explains that the 150,000 Biku is a direct reward from the mayor. Jink argues that if it were a real rescue quest, the reward would have been much higher. Loki is surprised to hear talk of punishment. Jink explains that hunters are penalized for causing trouble, even during rescue missions. Loki realizes Yargov's story doesn't quite add up. The man is truly unreadable. Brushing the mystery aside, Loki decides it's time to celebrate. He announces that since he has money now, he's treating everyone to skewers. The next morning, as the church bells ring, Loki resolves to register as a hunter. He finds Amanda at the guild, who smiles, pleased that he remembered her. Amanda formally introduces herself as the third most important receptionist in the Bizarre Guild. Loki realizes befriending her could be useful and eagerly places himself in her care. Pleased, Amanda asks if he's ready to register and directs him to fill out the paperwork. Quill in hand, Loki pauses, knowing that signing the name Loki is a definitive step. Seeing his hesitation, Amanda asks him if he is able to write. He confidently assures her he can and begins to sign his new name. Amanda explains she will brief him on the guild while his official card is being made. A vision of Jink explains that the guild is where hunters take on subjugation quests. Mice's voice adds that low rankers mostly assist with menial tasks for others. Loki asks about his rank. Amanda confirms that everyone begins at G rank. A diagram illustrates the 8 ranks from G to S, which dictate the quests one can accept. Amanda's voice explains that taking a higher quest, like a sword goblin hunt, requires permission. Loki asks about promotion requirements, but the answer is unfortunately a secret. He then asks about promotion exams, a question Amanda seems to appreciate. She explains that practical exams begin at B rank, and S rank requires a final interview. Amanda challenges him, stating that he must contribute and prove his strength to advance. Loki is thrilled by this meritocracy, where effort directly translates into reward. He contrasts this with his old, exploitative corporate job, where hard work went unrewarded. Just then, his hunter card is ready and passed to Amanda. Loki proudly holds up his new G-rank card, officially beginning his life as a hunter. Amanda asks if he has any more questions now that the briefing is over. She winks, revealing that the guild master personally asked her to look after him. Loki is grateful for the offer of guidance from his cute big sister. He wastes no time asking for her recommendation on the best hunting grounds. Amanda points to a map, noting the Palmera Great Forest isn't popular with beginners. Loki is surprised to hear it called the First Stratum, a term he recognizes. She explains the shallow areas are safe, but the deeper parts are full of mystery. Intrigued by the prospect of an unknown area, Loki eagerly asks for more details. Amanda recounts that one party took 60 days to reach the second stratum, with legends of a fifth. Loki is amazed to learn the forest is said to cover a quarter of the continent. His gamer instincts ignite. It's a classic high-level dungeon right next to the starting town. He moves on, asking about the off-rank request to retrieve the Lost Hunter's items. He clarifies if the reward for the items is separate from a normal subjugation quest. Amanda confirms it is, but warns him not to get any reckless ideas. She says the reward isn't urgent, but Loki insists he's fine as long as there's profit. Amanda gives him a stern, disapproving look. With sparkling eyes, Loki asks if she's telling him not to go deep into Palmera. He says it's impossible now, but he'll work hard to get strong enough to go. Amanda scolds him, stressing that recklessness is not a virtue, and he must value his life. Unfazed by the lecture, Loki prepares his next question. After a long interrogation, he thanks a completely drained Amanda for her help. She wearily tells him to read the books in the data room for more information. Amanda warns that the books are chained up and damaging them has severe consequences. A nervous Loki promises that he will be extremely careful. He leaves, glad he got the information without needing to take notes. He observes that paper seems to be a luxury here compared to wooden planks. As he walks through the guild hall, Jink calls out to him. The young swordsman proudly shows off his own newly acquired hunter tag. Loki grins, holding up his own card in a gesture of shared accomplishment. Jink reports their hunt brought in 22,000 Biku, giving Loki his 5,500 share. Jink says he's going to sell the goblin sword, and asks if Loki has other plans. Loki decides to join them, wanting to see the process through. Jink leads the way, saying the weapon shop is just around the corner. The burly blacksmith inspects the crude sword and offers a low 50,000 Biku. Loki immediately counters, pleading for a much higher price of 80,000 Biku. The children are shocked, saying it was a hard-won prize. The blacksmith scoffs, unimpressed by the boy's audacity. He refuses to buy at a loss, offering 40,000 for an easy four-way split. Loki is visibly annoyed by the insultingly low offer. A sharp, calculating glint appears in his eye as his salaryman instincts awaken. He coolly asks the blacksmith what the sword's going rate is on the open market. The smith grudgingly confirms that it is indeed worth around that much. Loki reveals he saw a similar sword selling for 100,000 Biku outside. He points out that even at his initial offer, the smith would still make a profit. Flustered, the smith raises his offer to 60,000, insisting he needs to make money. Loki smiles slyly, preparing to deliver his final, decisive argument. He mentions knowing that a gate guard, a likely customer, recently bought a sword there. He correctly deduces the smith was already planning to sell this exact sword. Cornered, the smith listens as Loki offers a compromise of 72,000 Biku. Loki playfully threatens to just give the sword a Pada if the deal isn't accepted. The blacksmith finally throws in the towel, agreeing to buy the sword for 72,000. Victorious, Loki immediately asks the exasperated smith how much he'd pay for his knife. With his newfound wealth, Loki purchases a set of local clothes for 3,000 Biku. He also invests in a pair of sturdy boots for a steep 40,000 Biku. He's finally shedding his initial gear and equipping himself properly for his new life. He celebrates having finally secured a proper place to sleep for the night. He collapses onto his new bed at the inn, overjoyed that everything is going so well. A sudden, sharp knock echoes from his door. Loki sits up, thinking it's getting late and time to head out again. He takes a moment to appreciate the charming details of this world, like clock towers and magic lamps. Amanda enters his room, complimenting his handsome new look. Loki gets straight to the point, asking her about the special quest. She confirms that he has been given special permission to undertake an F-rank quest. However, she adds that there is one important condition attached. She grabs him, yelling that as a rookie, he absolutely must form a party. Loki thinks to himself that forming a party really has no benefits for him. While he understands the logic of party roles, he has his own reasons for going solo. He can't accept splitting experience and rewards, which he could earn alone in Palmyra. Leaving the guild, he internally apologizes to Amanda for ignoring her advice. At the town gate, a guard wishes him well, telling him to return by sunset. Loki is surprised by the man's genuine concern for his safety. He realizes that both Amanda and the guard are truly worried about him. Waving goodbye, he promises the guard that he will, of course, return safely. An elf-like adventurer watches from the sidelines as Loki departs. He steps into the Palmyra Great Forest's first stratum, ready for his first real hunt. He mentally reviews his profitable solo targets: horned rabbits, goblins, and flower moles. He spots a normal rabbit in the undergrowth and decides to test his new skills. He recalls the image of Jink expertly felling a similar creature. With a look of determination, he decides to try and replicate the move. He lunges forward, dispatching the rabbit with a single, clean strike from his knife. Ecstatic, Loki celebrates his level up, feeling how much clearer his movements have become. He realizes even he can feel the immense, game-changing benefit of his status screen. He moves like a blur through the forest, effortlessly felling 2 horned rabbits. Spotting a goblin, he feels confident he can win even without his flashlight. With a determined expression, he easily dodges the goblin's clumsy attack. He swings his scythe, declaring this is how he will handle these monsters now. Panting, he savors the tangible feeling of growth, just like in a game. He raises his scythe to the sky, vowing to defeat every monster he finds. Roughly 1 hour passes in the dense, monster-filled forest. The aftermath of his hunt is a gruesome scene of blood-soaked ground. He kneels over a goblin's body, preparing for the grim task of butchering it. A wave of nausea hits him as he begins the disgusting work. He is overwhelmed by the repulsive smell and texture of the monster's corpse. Covered in gore, he feels sick from the overwhelming and unfamiliar sensations. He laments that his only knowledge of this process comes from dissecting frogs in class. He thinks about how his clumsy technique is only making the process even grosser. A drop of warm blood splashes his cheek, making him flinch in disgust. He finally finds what he was looking for inside the creature's chest. He moves on to the next task, harvesting the valuable parts from the neck. He carefully cuts along the joint, noting the softness of the flesh. In his blood-soaked hand, he holds up the small, glowing magic stone. Finally, with a sigh of relief, he finishes the exhausting and grim task. He is dismayed that it took an entire hour just to process a single kill. Staring at his bloody hands, he is shocked by the brutal reality of his work. He washes up in a stream, wondering how he'll deal with all the blood. He curses himself for being a fool and thinking solo hunting was efficient. He berates his own naivety, remembering how close he came to dying. He notes that his knife has become too slippery with blood to use properly. He resolves to push past his frustration and meet his daily quota. Gritting his teeth, he demands that he show some grit and see the job through. He arrives back at the Hunter's Guild, ready to sell his haul. The receptionist recognizes him as the swordsman who defeated the goblin. Amanda is impressed, commenting that it's a huge haul for a first hunt. Her expression quickly sours as she takes in his blood-soaked appearance. Loki stands awkwardly before her, covered head to toe in filth and gore. Amanda erupts, asking if he went out unprepared and alone because he wants to die. She continues scolding him for only now asking about basic hunter equipment. She points furiously, ordering him to go wash his hands that instant. Walking away, he thinks he was just scolded like a child because he is one now. The tavern keeper offers him something to help with his obvious exhaustion. With a broad smile, she presents 2 enormous skewers of sizzling roasted meat. A sudden flashback to the bloody goblin corpse makes him queasy. He tells the keeper he's lost his appetite and asks for ice water instead. She places a tall, cool glass of water on the table before him. He takes a sip, his eyes scanning the other patrons in the guild tavern. The keeper asks if something is on his mind, but he quickly denies it. His attention is drawn to a well-dressed man sitting at a nearby table. He is surprised to see the man wearing a pair of modern-looking glasses. He recalls that glasses from this era should have a much more primitive design. He pictures other anachronistic items that feel strangely modern for this world. He muses that this world's history must be very different from Earth's. He realizes the hero Takuya is likely introducing modern civilization here. He dismisses the thought, deciding to focus on his own immediate problems. A woman calls out to the guild's butcher, Rhodey, asking for his help. Rhodey recognizes her and asks if she needs him for something concerning the new rookie. He comments that for a first-timer, the kid did a good job draining the blood. Rhodey laughs, teasing the woman about having a handsome freeloader around. He proudly calls Loki the guild's promising new rookie who will make them a lot of money. Loki sits alone, setting a short-term financial goal of 550,000 biku for himself. The chapter begins titled A Realistic World, showing the local beginner monsters. The Locker Plains are introduced, home to creatures like the mantis and poison mouse. The Rull Forest is shown to be far more dangerous, with orcs and packs of wolves. Loki reads a book, realizing he'll soon have to move to a new hunting ground. He complains that the guild's guidebook should list recommended levels, not just ranks. He leans back, feeling that while he's been reckless, this area isn't too dangerous. The butcher calls out, telling Loki that his earnings have been calculated. He cheerfully announces the total, a massive 48,500 biku. Loki is stunned by the huge sum he earned in just half a day's work. He approaches the butcher, wanting to ask a question about his earnings. He asks if the reward payout changes based on the quality of the materials. The butcher confirms this, explaining the 5-tier A2E rating system. Loki eagerly asks if the butcher can teach him how to get higher ratings. The butcher chuckles, advising that taking a break is just as important as working hard. Amanda appears, reminding him that she's always looking out for him. Loki's mind spirals into an obsessive loop of maximizing efficiency and getting new gear. Amanda calls out to him with a warm, knowing smile. She reminds him of her promise to teach him the basics of being a hunter. Her smile becomes predatory as she vows to teach him every last detail. Loki panics, trying to make an excuse about needing to go buy supplies. Amanda sighs, telling him she can't stop him, but he better not overdo it. Before he leaves, she tells him to take a small gift from her. He stands before the town church, holding the silver coin for a status appraisal. He wonders aloud how other people in this world check their own status. Jink appears, waving cheerfully and asking if his hunting for the day is done. He explains that he and the other children were just heading out to shop. A clever idea suddenly strikes Loki. He brightly offers the silver coin to Jink, saying it's a gift from Amanda. The children are confused, asking why he'd give away a free status appraisal. Jink mentions it's been 2 years, so he was planning on getting one soon anyway. Loki asks if, in exchange, they could just explain how the appraisal works. He tries to cover his tracks, asking if it's just practice for different towns. He laughs nervously, hoping his flimsy excuse is believable enough. Jink explains that you touch a black slate, and your skills and levels appear. Loki is taken aback, asking if that is truly all that it does. He presses them for more details, asking if any other numbers are shown. Misa asks if he means the total number of skills a person has acquired. She happily lists her own skills, sending Loki into a state of silent shock. He warns the children not to tell others their skills, as they could be exploited. Misa is shocked, but Jink says it doesn't really matter in her case. A fearsome nun storms out, furiously scolding the children for causing a ruckus. A formidable nun emerges from the church, demanding to know why they are making a scene. The children excitedly introduce Loki, explaining that he is a powerful new hunter. She offers church guidance to the boy from the poor village, but Loki politely declines. Her demeanor instantly shifts, praising his politeness and bright future with a practiced smile. As they leave, she pats his head, reminding him that the goddess watches over him. She piously encourages him to accumulate virtue every day to receive divine blessings. Loki scoffs internally, certain that the smug, acorn-like god is definitely not watching him. The children explain that while daily life grants experience, monster hunting is most efficient. Loki is shocked to learn the level of skills one can acquire depends on this accumulation. He tells the others that he needs to start heading out to do some shopping. He adds that if he doesn't hurry, he will be late for dinner at the inn. The children wave and cheerfully bid him farewell for the day. Loki waves back, turning to walk back to his solitary room at the inn. He arrives back at the simple, wooden building that has become his temporary home. Entering his Spartan room, he lets out a weary sigh, the day's events catching up. He slumps at his table, grateful for a fish dinner. He cannot stomach meat now. His thoughts turn grim as he reflects on the harsh realities of his new life. He remembers the visceral truth of hunting, the smell of blood, and the act of killing. This world, he concludes with chilling certainty, is an unforgiving and merciless reality. He stares at the magic lamp, remembering the child god's cryptic words about being handmade. The smug, upside-down face of the god flashes in his mind, its meaning now clear. He understands that for locals, accumulating virtue is just their term for gaining experience. It's why they don't obsess over landing the final, decisive blow on a monster. They are simply unaware of the game-like system that secretly governs their entire world. He sits at his desk, poring over his own secret, the detailed status screen. He can see every skill and progress bar, a power others can't even imagine. The local status appraisal, he realizes, is just a simple confirmation of qualifications. His own ability to see every number and stat is, without a doubt, a cheat. And because of this cheat, his entire existence feels dangerously like a video game. He questions his own heart, wondering if he's callously disregarding Amanda's worries. Is he just using these children as tools to advance his own goals? In his old world, he was a powerless corporate slave with no hope. But here, he clenches his fist, knowing that his effort will make him truly strong. A vision of demonic power fills his mind, an irresistible yearning for strength. He never wants to return to the miserable powerlessness of his old life. He feels that if he continues on this path, his spirit will simply rot. He pleads with the absent God, asking to be sent back to his world. As if in answer, his lamp flickers out, plunging him into total darkness. In the blackness, he imagines himself as a dark figure, a demon lord. He recalls the legend of the hero Takuya defeating the demon lord Loki. He decides he's no hero. He will become the demon lord and conquer all. Shaking off the cringeworthy fantasy, he resolves to live as he pleases. Unsure of his purpose here, he decides that he will live for himself. And yet, the faint memory of his new friends complicates his solitary vow. He looks out the window, wondering if he should tell them the truth. He reflects that since his arrival, the smug god has been utterly absent. Left to his own devices, a new and pressing problem has finally surfaced. To combat his pathetic stamina, he has spent 3 days jogging relentlessly. Exhausted from his training, he decides to take it easy for the day. Suddenly, the children run towards him, screaming they are under attack again. Pata, struggling to keep up with the others, trips and falls hard. Loki's eyes widen in shock as he sees who is coming to help. As a monster's claw reaches for Pata, Loki sprints forward to intervene. But 2 burly women intercept, shattering the monster's claws with a double punch. Loki can only stare, dazed and confused by the sudden turn of events. One of the women casually carries the frightened Pata away from the danger. She beams, telling him it's all right and that he's kind for worrying. Back at the guild, the butcher explains that the local women are tough. The butcher is surprised to see Loki, asking if he's finally worn out. Loki explains he's simply finished his daily quota and came back to sell. The butcher is impressed, noting Loki's consistency is earning him a reputation. Loki admits that he doesn't want to stand out, finding it troublesome. But he can't afford to lose income, prompting the butcher to ask why. He dreams of new gear for the locker planes, needing 1.5 million biku. The butcher tells him to give up on not standing out to reach his goal. Loki finally understands why those women were so strong and dressed so casually. The guild butcher advised that selling to specialty shops would earn him more money. This new strategy would also improve his guild reputation and help him rank up. He realized that optimizing his profits was directly tied to his hunter advancement. However, another hunter's words sparked a new anxiety about carrying so much cash. A friendly guild worker asked if he knew he could deposit his earnings. Loki was stunned by this simple solution to his paranoia, agreeing immediately. He later grumbled, wondering why Amanda hadn't taught him something so important. His mind had been filled with comical fears of being instantly robbed by bandits. He even imagined a tragic night weeping over a plundered, empty treasure chest. His mind now at ease, he accidentally bumped into a large man in the street. He noticed the man had just exited a beautifully decorated building topped with crystals. After a quick apology for his carelessness, his curiosity was piqued by the shop. He correctly identified the opulent building as a jewelry store and decided to enter. Inside, an elegant woman in black robes welcomed him into the glittering establishment. With a knowing smile, she immediately asked if he was there to sell magic stones. Overwhelmed by the sight, he asked if everything on display was a magic stone. She noted his intense fascination, amused by his almost manic excitement over the gems. Seeing his passion, the proprietress offered to teach him a special secret about them. She revealed a fundamental truth. A stone's color determines its elemental attribute. He then presented a small, brownish stone he had acquired during his hunts. His eyes sparkled with delight as he realized he possessed a valuable elemental stone. She explained that non-elemental stones were for daily use, but colored ones had greater purpose. A sudden, thrilling realization began to dawn on him as he processed her words. She confirmed his suspicion. Magic stones could be used to enchant weapons with elements. Loki's mind raced, his gamer instincts grasping the immense strategic possibilities. He excitedly imagined himself dual-wielding elemental blades, a true fantasy warrior. The proprietress was amused by his vivid and immediate leap into heroic daydreams. She brought him back to reality, noting that enchanting was a very costly process. The mention of the high price gave him a moment of stunned pause. She then presented a tiny earthstone with a price tag of 50,000 bikku. He screamed in disbelief, contrasting the price with his previous meager earnings. She calmly explained that earthstones were cheaper, being less popular than combat-focused ones. He begrudgingly accepted the logic, his dreams of power meeting harsh economic reality. The mysterious jeweler bids him farewell, calling him the hunter of the future. Walking through the streets of Bizarre, Loki lets out a long, weary sigh. He worries about the high cost of acquiring proper equipment for his hunts. He daydreams of powerful magical attacks and precise archery skills. Breaking from his fantasy, he decides it is finally time for dinner. A sudden, deeply familiar aroma stops him in his tracks, sparking a memory. His mind conjures a vivid, fantastic vision of an Indian palace. He realizes the incredible scent is coming from a nearby building. He bursts through the door, hoping his senses are not deceiving him. Inside, he is shocked to see a man wearing a white turban. The proprietor calmly asks if he is familiar with a dish called kaori. Loki's face lights up with pure joy as he enthusiastically says yes. He is surprised when the proprietor gestures to a single empty seat. The man asks if he is truly prepared to sit at the counter. He reveals his only dish costs a staggering 9,000 bikku per bowl. Loki is utterly stunned by the incredibly expensive price for one meal. But his body trembles with an undeniable, instinctual craving for the food. He slams his money on the counter, declaring that he will pay. The proprietor gives a thin, approving smirk at the boy's resolve. Loki's eyes widen as the steaming, fragrant bowl is placed before him. He remembers his old life as a salaryman, eating curry for lunch. He takes his first, long-awaited bite, filled with anticipation. An intense, fiery spiciness explodes across his palate like a bomb. He cries out internally, thinking the spice is so strong that it hurts. He pauses for a moment, sweating from the sheer heat of the dish. But beneath the spice, he discovers a profound and delicious umami flavor. He quickly devours the entire meal, leaving the bowl completely empty. He finds himself unable to stop, spooning the curry into his mouth. He stands up from the table, feeling completely and utterly satisfied. With his hands together, he gives a sincere and reverent thank you. He waves a cheerful goodbye as he departs from the small restaurant. He reflects on the fact that one meal cost him a massive 9,000 bikku. He closes his eyes, savoring the lingering memory of the exquisite taste. He begins to wonder if another person from Earth might be in this town. The familiar flavor makes him suspect there is another reincarnated nearby. A woman's voice calls his name, asking if he is indeed Loki Kuhn. He sees the lush, green plants growing outside a charming apothecary. He is greeted warmly by Mice's mother and her foster son. He is surprised to realize he has stumbled upon Mice's family home. Her mother jokes that they might have met before in the forest. A voice calls out to him, asking if he is Loki Kuhn. He stands before the apothecary, looking at the small garden outside. Mice's mother and foster son come out to greet him at the door. Loki is surprised, recognizing that this must be Mice's apothecary. Her mother comically imagines the meeting while she was out foraging. A woman's voice calls his name, Loki Kuhn, from the doorway. He notices the various medicinal herbs growing in pots outside the shop. He is greeted by Mice's mother, who introduces her foster son. He realizes with a start that this is Mice's family's apothecary. Her mother playfully suggests they may have crossed paths in the woods. Suddenly, Misa comes clattering down the stairs, calling his name. She bursts outside, excitedly asking him to play by the river tomorrow. She insists it will be a great time, filled with fun and fishing. Loki is stunned into silence by her overwhelming, cheerful energy. She dashes off down the street, promising to tell Jink and Pada. Her mother sighs, apologizing for her daughter's storm-like departure. Misa comes running down the stairs inside the house, shouting his name. She points directly at him, inviting him to go play by the river. She eagerly describes all the fun activities they can do there together. Loki is left completely speechless by her sudden and energetic request. She runs off, calling back that she will inform their other friends. Her mother watches her go with an amused and apologetic expression. He hears Misa's footsteps thundering down the stairs towards the door. She appears, her face beaming as she asks him to play tomorrow. She shakes him, insisting that playing by the river is the best. Her sheer enthusiasm leaves Loki at a momentary loss for words. She sprints away down the road to tell the other two children. Her mother good-naturedly apologizes to Loki for all the chaos. The mother and son gently pressure him into accepting the invitation. Loki smiles warmly, agreeing that it will be fun with the three of them. Misa's mother is relieved, thanking him for ensuring the children's safety. He blushes, feeling flattered but undeserving of her complete trust. He privately thinks to himself that Jink is the truly strong one. The mother and foster son discuss the children's exciting new plans. Loki agrees to go, saying he would enjoy spending time with them. Her mother takes his hands, expressing her sincere gratitude for his help. He feels a bit embarrassed by her earnest and heartfelt praise. He knows he's not nearly as dependable in the wild as Jink is. They talk about how much the children have taken a liking to him. Loki smiles, saying he is sure that he will have fun with them. Misa's mother thanks him again for his kindness and his protection. He is happy, but feels he has not yet earned such profound trust. He privately believes that Jink is the more reliable of the two. Misa's mother suddenly stops, remembering she had something for him. She presents him with a small, quart glass vial filled with pills. He curiously takes the bottle and asks her what the item is. She explains that it is a potent medicine for his muscle fatigue. He is overjoyed by the useful gift and asks how much it costs. She smiles, telling him it's a gift for saving Misa's life. She pauses, having a sudden realization about what she can give him. She places a small bottle of black pills into his open hands. He looks at the unfamiliar vial and asks what is inside of it. She says it's for recovery after his hard work hunting in the wilds. He is thrilled by the offer and immediately asks to pay for it. She smiles warmly, saying it is simply a thank you gift from her. Misa's mother remembers that she has something she wants to give him. She offers him the small, corked vial containing several black pills. He takes the bottle from her, asking what is contained inside. She explains that it will help him with his daily physical exhaustion. He is grateful for the offer and asks what he owes her for it. She tells him to consider it payment for saving her precious daughter. Loki nervously insists that he fully intends to pay for the medicine. Misa's mother seems flustered, stammering as she tries to find the right words. His inner cynic wonders if her kind expression is a mask for deceit. She clarifies that the medicine is simply too expensive to give away for free. Loki is shocked, realizing her concern was about money, not its effectiveness. He recognizes the rare ingredients and concludes the medicine must be quite potent. Loki nervously insists that he fully intends to pay for the medicine. Misa's mother seems flustered, stammering as she tries to find the right words. His inner cynic wonders if her kind expression is a mask for deceit. She clarifies that the medicine is simply too expensive to give away for free. Loki is shocked, realizing her concern was about money, not its effectiveness. He recognizes the rare ingredients and concludes the medicine must be quite potent. Loki nervously insists that he fully intends to pay for the medicine. Misa's mother seems flustered, stammering as she tries to find the right words. His inner cynic wonders if her kind expression is a mask for deceit. She clarifies that the medicine is simply too expensive to give away for free. Loki is shocked, realizing her concern was about money, not its effectiveness. He recognizes the rare ingredients and concludes the medicine must be quite potent. As a kind gesture, Misa's mother offers him some stomach medicine as well. He gratefully accepts the vial, promising to buy more if it works. Misa and her younger brother watch from the porch as Loki departs. Outside, Jink spots him and waves enthusiastically, announcing his arrival to Pada. As a kind gesture, Misa's mother offers him some stomach medicine as well. He gratefully accepts the vial, promising to buy more if it works. Misa and her younger brother watch from the porch as Loki departs. Outside, Jink spots him and waves enthusiastically, announcing his arrival to Pada. As a kind gesture, Misa's mother offers him some stomach medicine as well. He gratefully accepts the vial, promising to buy more if it works. Misa and her younger brother watch from the porch as Loki departs. Outside, Jink spots him and waves enthusiastically, announcing his arrival to Pada. Misa, full of boundless energy, shouts for everyone to hurry up and go. Walking towards the gate, Jink notes Loki bought the cheapest spear available. Jink puts Pada in charge of carrying the gear for their outing. As they leave the town's walls, Loki asks how long their journey is. Misa, full of boundless energy, shouts for everyone to hurry up and go. Walking towards the gate, Jink notes Loki bought the cheapest spear available. Jink puts Pada in charge of carrying the gear for their outing. As they leave the town's walls, Loki asks how long their journey is. Loki is utterly stunned to hear that their destination is 2 hours away. The children happily trek through the forest, calling it their playground. Looking up at the massive trees, Loki reflects on how wild this world is. Loki is utterly stunned to hear that their destination is 2 hours away. The children happily trek through the forest, calling it their playground. Looking up at the massive trees, Loki reflects on how wild this world is. Loki is utterly stunned to hear that their destination is 2 hours away. The children happily trek through the forest, calling it their playground. Looking up at the massive trees, Loki reflects on how wild this world is. Arriving at the river, Loki takes a deep, satisfying breath of fresh air. Misa carefully crawls across the river stones, searching for edible plants. Jink approaches, teasing Loki for not having caught a single fish for lunch. Arriving at the river, Loki takes a deep, satisfying breath of fresh air. Misa carefully crawls across the river stones, searching for edible plants. Jink approaches, teasing Loki for not having caught a single fish for lunch. Arriving at the river, Loki takes a deep, satisfying breath of fresh air. Misa carefully crawls across the river stones, searching for edible plants. Jink approaches, teasing Loki for not having caught a single fish for lunch. The group fishes by the serene river as Loki comments on the peaceful scenery. Misa presents her mother's bento, while Pada offers to share his fish. Jink continues to mercilessly tease Loki about his terrible fishing skills. The group fishes by the serene river as Loki comments on the peaceful scenery. Misa presents her mother's bento, while Pada offers to share his fish. Jink continues to mercilessly tease Loki about his terrible fishing skills. The children are excited that they have a magic tool for starting a fire. Loki calmly demonstrates how to use the modern, magic stone-powered stove. Jink and Pada stare in wide-eyed wonder as a flame ignites instantly. Loki holds the stove aloft, marveling at its incredible convenience. He excitedly tells everyone to eat, as Jink ponders his friend's ignorance. The children are excited that they have a magic tool for starting a fire. Loki calmly demonstrates how to use the modern, magic stone-powered stove. Jink and Pada stare in wide-eyed wonder as a flame ignites instantly. Loki holds the stove aloft, marveling at its incredible convenience. He excitedly tells everyone to eat, as Jink ponders his friend's ignorance. The children are excited that they have a magic tool for starting a fire. Loki calmly demonstrates how to use the modern, magic stone-powered stove. Jink and Pata stare in wide-eyed wonder as a flame ignites instantly. Loki holds the stove aloft, marveling at its incredible convenience. He excitedly tells everyone to eat, as Jink ponders his friend's ignorance. A thin wisp of smoke rises from their campfire by the riverside. Loki smiles, thinking to himself that this is a truly nice moment. The four friends sit together, joyfully eating grilled fish around the fire. Jink is initially disgusted by the cooked river creatures, calling them bugs. The perfectly cooked fish is shown skewered and ready to be eaten. Loki encourages the others to try the bugs, insisting they are delicious. The children's faces light up with joy, exclaiming how amazing it tastes. Fired up, Jink suggests they hunt more and have a team competition. The group wonders how they should decide on the teams for the game. Loki introduces them to the convenient game of Jankenpon from his world. The children are amazed by this new way to decide things. The sound of their game echoes through the peaceful forest clearing. Misa and Jink are fired up, ready to compete against Loki and Pata. Loki encourages Pata, telling him to do his best in their competition. He realizes Pata is nervous because he can't fully understand his words yet. Loki decides to use gestures to communicate his strategy to his teammate. Pata's face brightens with understanding, and he confidently agrees to the plan. Loki directs Pata with a series of frantic gestures and simple commands. He urgently points, telling Pata to move a rock so he can pounce. Loki suddenly stops, realizing he might have been pushing Pata too hard. He gently apologizes and asks if they should slow down a bit. He watches Pata, sensing that a significant breakthrough has just occurred. With tears of joy, Pata exclaims that he can finally understand Loki's words. A young boy with dark, spiky hair shouts in distress, his mouth wide open in a cry of alarm. In a sudden, emotional outburst, Pata lifts Loki into a bone-crushing hug, tears of joy streaming down his face. Jink and Misa splash happily in the river, amazed by the news and cheering for their friend's breakthrough. A close-up reveals Loki's eye, wide with shock and a dawning realization. Still being squeezed, Loki processes the unbelievable truth. He has been acting as a language teacher for Pata. Loki squirms in Pata's powerful grip, insisting that this is hardly the time for celebratory hugs. The children gather around a beaming Pata, congratulating him on the fruits of his hard work. Loki smiles warmly, suggesting he take them to a special place to celebrate Pata's achievement. The small group walks through the town, Pata running ahead with pure, unadulterated excitement. At the curry restaurant, Loki gives a thumbs up while his friends are comically overwhelmed by the intense spice. A caption indicates several days have passed, showing a large, timber-framed building under a cloudy sky. Loki examines the small medicine vial, musing that he should ask Misa's mother about its price later. Waking in his own room, Loki stretches and marvels that his body feels even lighter than the day before. Walking down the stairs, he calculates that his earnings have finally reached his goal of 150,000 BQ. While eating, he checks his status, satisfied to see his key skills have reached level 3. He continues to ponder his status screen, the words floating in a black thought bubble. With a sharp, determined glint in his eye, Loki thinks to himself, all right. He stands at the entrance to the impressive two-story Hunters Guild building. Amanda bursts forth, her face a mask of demonic rage as she demands to know why he's been absent. Loki calmly explains that simply depositing his earnings is far more convenient and efficient. Amanda sits pouting at her desk, admitting she was lonely, prompting Loki to ask if something is wrong. Her mood instantly flips to one of pure joy as she claps her hands and congratulates him on his promotion. She comically berates a cowering Loki, upset that someone got promoted without her knowing. Her expression softens again as she offers to help him with his withdrawal. His wallet full and his spirit high, Loki declares his intention to get new gear and challenge the Locker Plains. Amanda cheerfully explains the guild's ranking system, showing the different metals from copper to adamant. A chibi Loki questions if changing the card's material is an optional feature. Amanda smiles slyly, informing him that processing the upgrade will, of course, require an additional fee. Loki screams in horrified shock, recognizing the familiar sting of a monetization system. She teases him, noting that higher-ranking members naturally want flashier, more impressive cards. Loki's expression becomes thoughtful as he processes this new, slightly frustrating information. He points out the strange progression, questioning why S rank is adamant when gold is a lower tier. Leaning forward earnestly, he asks Amanda if S-Class is truly the highest rank a hunter can achieve. Amanda's hands are clasped on her desk as she calmly asks him why he would think that. Loki muses that it just feels strange for gold to be a mid-tier rank if adamant is the pinnacle. Amanda acknowledges that he is sharp for noticing the oddity in their system. She reveals that in the past, higher ranks existed, but the hunters capable of reaching them are now gone. Leaning closer, she asks if he is interested in hearing the tale of the vanished upper ranks. Loki wonders if this means there are other hunters today who might have the aptitude for those lost ranks. He imagines a stereotypical cheat hero named Takuya, wondering if such a person actually exists here. Gritting his teeth, he reasons that a prince would have no need to become a common hunter. A simple figure of Loki collapses in despair, lamenting the vast difference between himself and another Japanese native. He strokes his chin thoughtfully, wondering if he might one day meet this legendary hero. A hooded Amanda suddenly appears behind him, asking if he truly wishes to know the story. She leans in with a sinister grin, confirming she can tell him, much to Loki's delight. Loki passionately demands she explain the legend of the vanished ranks, while she calls him an impatient brat. A tiny, defeated Loki collapses on the ground, overwhelmed by Amanda's unusually intense pressure. A close-up shows the aura of pressure emanating from Amanda. Loki pumps a fist, shaking off the feeling and telling himself to pull it together and prepare. A montage shows his plans, gathering information, buying antidotes, and getting potions for the locker planes. Holding a new sword, Loki declares that all he needs now are weapons and armor from Bizarre's shop. Bizarre stands with his arms crossed, his expression like stone as he states it will take 5 days. Loki stammers in disbelief while Bizarre considers that chainmail might take 4 days. A ghostly, weeping version of Loki wails in despair, wondering if he has finally snapped. He pleads with the blacksmith for any off-the-rack gear, desperate to leave for the plains today. Bizarre scoffs, lecturing that life-saving armor must be properly fitted or it will hinder movement in a fight. He slams a piece of armor down, shouting that he doesn't just keep custom, child-sized armor in stock. He tells Loki to browse the weapons while he takes his measurements. Dejected, Loki decides he will just have to go without new armor for now. His eyes catch sight of a particular weapon in a display case, and he stops, intrigued. He asks Bizarre if he might take a look at the short sword in the case. Bizarre's expression becomes pained as he begins to explain that particular sword is... He sighs in resignation, agreeing to take it out of the case for Loki. Loki holds the sword, his face alight with joy, exclaiming that its size is perfect and it's within his budget. He is shocked to see it's enchanted, but Bizarre explains that it simply won't sell. Bizarre elaborates that hunters who could use it wouldn't pay the high price for such an enchantment. Loki looks surprised, asking if Bizarre knew all of that when he originally made it. Bizarre asks why he'd think he made it, and Loki explains what the jeweler told him. A flashback shows the mysterious jeweler laughing, calling Bizarre an idiot. Bizarre admits he made it, prompting Loki to wonder why he would craft a sword that wouldn't sell. Loki nervously speculates that perhaps it was a prototype or a personal gift. Bizarre lets out a long, heavy sigh, his face etched with a deep sadness. He reveals the truth, that is, the sword I made for my son. Loki is taken aback, exclaiming that he didn't realize Bizarre had a son. He immediately claps a hand over his mouth, horrified by his own tactless remark. Bizarre explodes in anger, calling him an idiot for asking about the one sword that was obviously not for sale. He calms down, admitting Loki is just as he imagined his own adventurous son at that age. Loki asks uncertainly if he should still consider buying the memento. Bysar says it's for sale, believing his son would be happy if a worthy person used it. Loki beams with gratitude, accepting the offer with a heartfelt yes. Bysar grips the hilt of the sword, his tone becoming serious as he says, "And so." His face shrouded in shadow, he warns Loki not to dare go to the locker planes without armor. Loki flinches, sweat dripping down his face under the blacksmith's intense, intimidating gaze. He grits his teeth, knowing Bysar is right, but unable to contain his impatience. With firm resolve, he looks up and declares that he intends to go anyway. He mentally reviews his stats, confident he is strong enough for the plains monsters. He reasons that he is proceeding cautiously and should be able to handle the F-rank recommended creatures. He wonders if Bysar would understand if he had to sell the sword just to afford the armor. He grips the hilt, thinking that while a normal person would wait, he is different. A flashback to his gaming past shows him grinding relentlessly to become stronger than anyone else. He looks at Bysar with manic eyes, declaring that he can't wait 4 days and will go with only a knife. Bysar's eye narrows, taking in the boy's desperate, almost obsessive determination. A bead of sweat drips down Loki's temple as he awaits the blacksmith's response. Bysar grits his teeth, clearly frustrated by the boy's stubbornness. He clutches his head in exasperation, sighing about why Loki has to say the exact same things his son did. He explains that he poured his heart into making his son's weapons, only for him to die in the field. He tells Loki to wait a moment and walks into the back of the workshop. He returns with a slight smile, remarking that the armor is a perfect fit, just as he thought. Loki, now wearing the new gear, realizes with a jolt that this must have belonged to Bysar's son. Bysar explains the armor's wind magic resistance, asking if Loki has any complaints, prompting a nervous laugh. Bysar, the blacksmith, crosses his arms with a challenging smirk on his face. He warns Loki that if he dies, he will personally hunt him down again. Loki grins back, admitting the threat is enough to make his body tense up. Bysar leads him to the training area behind the shop to test the gear. In his new armor, Loki stands ready as Bysar tells him to try the sword. As his gloved hand grips the hilt, he thinks of Bysar's kindness. He realizes the sword was waiting for someone who truly desired to wield it. Bysar watches as Loki unleashes a flurry of swift strikes against a training dummy. Loki puts his full weight behind the swing, feeling a connection to the blade. The sword cuts a clean arc through the air, feeling perfectly balanced in his hands. Looking back, Loki promises the blacksmith that he will not die. A shouting match begins as Loki tries to pay and Bysar refuses the money. Bysar roars that it was never for sale, so he cannot accept payment. Loki yells back with equal fervor, insisting he has the money and will pay. Their stubborn argument echoes loudly from the blacksmith's shop into the street. Loki walks away, having managed to pay for the sword from the stubborn old man. He wryly thinks that receiving the armor as a gift felt like a game event. Having arrived at his destination, his expression is filled with purpose. He stands before the town church, ready for the final step of his preparations. He walks inside, telling the nun Maurice that this is his first time in a church. He looks up in awe at the grand altar and the statues of the goddesses. Maurice greets him warmly, noting that he's grown into a fine young man. Loki asks if the kneeling man is praying, and she confirms it. A man approaches, asking Maurice for a status appraisal, which she grants. Loki peeks, realizing with a shock that the process is completely public. He feels a wave of relief that his own status screen is private and convenient. He slyly asks Maurice if the size of a donation affects the appraisal's quality. She bonks him on the head, exclaiming that of course it doesn't work that way. He smirks, but she continues her explanation without missing a beat. She does mention that large donors are invited to events in the theocracy. Maurice laughs, saying it's not something country folk like them need to worry about. Loki internally scoffs at the familiar, unpleasant smell of adult money and influence. An image of the grand fan mail theocracy shows the power the church wields. Loki turns back to Maurice, confirming he has come to the church to pray. His face becomes serious as he announces the true reason for his visit. With newfound determination, he declares he is here for job selection. He thinks that he hadn't considered it, but will use any advantage he can get. Maurice explains that job selection is a divine blessing granted through earnest prayer. Loki's eyes widen with curiosity as he repeats her words. A divine blessing? She explains that jobs grant many benefits, like faster skill growth and unique abilities. He sighs internally, realizing this world has yet another classic RPG element. He understands the system as a growth bonus based on one's chosen profession. He asks if jobs have different ranks, and Maurice confirms that they do. She admits that in this small town, she has only seen beginner and intermediate ranks. However, she reveals the church has someone who received a divine oracle. Loki is stunned to learn of the existence of a special grade class. Maurice chuckles, admitting it's not a common sight in a town like theirs. She turns to call for the priest, whom she refers to as an old man. Loki panics, asking her not to drop such an important word so casually. The priest appears, asking Maurice if there is a job selection candidate today. He introduces himself as Trail, the town priest, as Loki gives his own name. Trail smiles kindly, saying he is still able to perform a divine oracle. Loki stares, realizing this humble man holds a truly special position. A title card appears, identifying him as the special grade class, Priest Trail. Loki thinks that the priest doesn't seem all that impressive for his title. He decides that a priest must be a special class and asks for guidance. He admits his total ignorance, asking if he can receive any kind of blessing. Trail explains that everyone's path is different and he should learn as he goes. He introduces Loki to the statue of Farron, the goddess of fertility. Next, he gestures to the statue of Regal, the goddess of war. He continues down the line, introducing Alicia, the goddess of love. Then he points to the solemn statue of Rhea, the goddess of sin. He introduces the fifth statue as Filler, the goddess of life. Finally, he presents the statue of Listi, the goddess of commerce. Loki stands before them, learning that the six goddesses love all humanity equally. A chibi version of the child god, Felza, appears, asking if Loki missed her. Loki internally notes that the annoying, acorn-headed god is not among the statues. He asks Trail if the people of Bizarre worship only these six goddesses. He wonders if it can really be so easy to receive a divine blessing. He asks if he must choose just one goddess to pray to for his job. Trail smiles gently, explaining that sometimes people receive unexpected jobs. He instructs Loki to kneel and pray with all his might for his desired job. Loki kneels before the altar, ready to make his earnest plea to the divine. He clasps his hands tightly, praying to the gods and goddesses for a job. He focuses his prayer, asking for a melee class with good strength and defense. He feels a strange sensation and wonders what is happening to him. A soft, ethereal voice calls out to him, telling him to prepare himself. He realizes the young voice is not Trail's or Maurice's. The stone church dissolves, and he finds himself standing in a sunlit meadow. Before him stands a trio of beautiful women, one with sharp, elven features. The central figure is a goddess with long, flowing hair and a gentle aura. The third is a small girl with straight black hair and an empty expression. The central goddess asks him a simple question. Who are you? Loki is stunned, realizing with a jolt that he is facing actual goddesses. The winged goddess, Regal, snaps at him, demanding he answer their question. A wave of invisible force slams into him, knocking him to the ground. In the darkness, he feels a sense of utter indifference to what happens next. The small goddess, Rhea, looms over him, calling him a foreign body in this world. With wide, unnerving eyes, she reaches out, declaring her intent to erase him. Pinned by an immense pressure, Loki can only sweat in terror as his end nears. A sharp voice cries out from nearby, commanding Rhea to stop at once. The central goddess, Alicia, holds Rhea back, saying they must hear his story first. Loki gasps for breath as the terrifying, crushing pressure finally recedes. He struggles to speak, wheezing that he was about to die. Alicia apologizes for the hostility and asks him to explain why he is here. He begins to speak, but hesitates, wondering if this is some kind of test. He explains his original name, Madu Eugen, and his sudden abduction. The goddesses speculate he was caught in a dimensional rift, but remain unconvinced. Loki tries to mention the child god, but finds he is unable to speak the words. The goddesses sense his thoughts are being blocked, which only deepens their suspicion. Loki, sweating profusely, desperately insists that he is not lying to them. Alicia considers this, noting he doesn't seem to be lying, despite being brought here. Rhea coldly suggests he has amnesia, shocking Loki with her bluntness. Regal complains that her divine eye sees nothing, questioning if he even has skills. He asks what is going on, as they discuss matters beyond his understanding. Rhea glances back, her expression hard as she judges him to be dangerous. The goddesses debate amongst themselves, suspecting the involvement of a higher god, Felza. Loki frantically begs them to calm down and please just listen to his story. A dark look crosses his face as he tells the foreign body to be silent. He clenches his fist tightly, muttering for them to just cut it out. The three goddesses are visibly startled by his sudden, defiant shift in tone. He erupts in fury, yelling that all gods are just selfish, arbitrary blockheads. Enraged, Regal declares his insolence is an offense worthy of 10,000 deaths. Loki bursts into mocking laughter, scoffing at her threat and their hypocrisy. Rhea suggests they simply kill him now, but Alicia sharply tells her to stop. He points accusingly, asking how they're any different from common criminals. He flashes back to his old life, then to being dumped alone in the forest. Rhea looks on, shocked, murmuring that his story is impossible. He remembers the brutal survival, eating raw meat, and the joy of finding people. He was just starting to enjoy this world, planning to live life to its fullest. Tears streaming down his face, he begs them to tell him what he did wrong. He thinks of the kind people who gave him hope and a reason to live. His old life was a living death, a hopeless existence he was glad to escape. He had wondered if reincarnation was real, hoping for a second chance. All he wanted was to try living in a world where effort is rewarded. He looks down, emotionally spent, as a divine voice asks who he is. Alicia, her form shimmering with light, gently asks who he truly is. He sobs that he doesn't know. He's just a man enjoying this new world. Alicia's expression softens as she asks to confirm just one more thing. She asks if he received any skills before his arrival in their world. She explains that they sometimes reincarnate souls, granting them special abilities. The word skills catches his attention, and he begins to understand. He realizes that this is what a true Ice-Sky reincarnation is all about. Holding up 2 fingers, he explains that he received 2 specific gifts. The first was rejuvenation, and the second was a unique status screen. He says his screen has 2 hidden fields, which must be those skills. Regal and Rhea are stunned, as their divine eyes cannot perceive such a thing. He describes the game-like interface, with detailed stats and a skill tree. The goddesses wonder if this is a system built by the higher god, Felza. Loki admits he doesn't understand the deeper meaning behind Felza's actions. He explains he can allocate skill points, unlike the locals who must pray. Alicia gasps in confirmation, certain this is the work of the higher god. Loki processes this, realizing Felza is essentially their boss. A smug grin appears on his face as he understands his screen is a cheat. Alicia muses that a skill that could threaten the world is unthinkable. The goddesses note the strange politeness of his inner thoughts, a stark contrast. Regal, Alicia, and Rhea finally understand they were wrong to attack him. In a stunning gesture, the 3 powerful goddesses bow low in apology. Loki, flustered, accepts and apologizes for his own rude outburst. He gets back to his original purpose for coming to the church. With a hopeful smile, he asks if choosing a job is now impossible for him. He wonders if he lacks the aptitude, but they tell him that isn't it. Regal explains that as lower gods, they cannot grant boons to otherworlders. He asks if they can send him home, but they sadly lack that power. Loki stands defeated before the goddesses, his last hope seemingly gone. Alicia speaks up, stating it is a goddess's role to offer salvation. He realizes that Alicia was the only one who truly listened from the start. Surrounded by sparkles, Alicia blushes and declares that he is cute. The other two goddesses are completely bewildered, their eyes spinning with confusion. Alicia excitedly offers to grant him advice since he is so troubled. She bestows upon him the Oracle LV.1 skill, allowing him to hear her. Loki asks if this means he will be under their constant surveillance now. Alicia cheerfully reassures him it's not surveillance, just a friendly presence. She excitedly offers him divine power, a skill only a child of God receives. She explains it's a special exception and also serves as their apology. Regal reluctantly agrees, saying she must now rest to recover her power. Exasperated, Loki thinks that gods truly don't know how to agree on anything. The divine realm fades away as he is sent back to his world. He finds himself back in the church, muttering that the experience was real. In his room, he sees the two new skills on his status screen. He notes his new job offers no stat bonuses, only the skill itself. He decides to be positive. He has a special skill and can contact goddesses. He resolved to test his new divine power skill before going to sleep. He is immediately overwhelmed by the goddesses' chaotic, overlapping chatter. He's shocked to learn the skill costs 50 MP and is only usable once a day. In a fit of rage, he slams his notebook hard against the table. What a trash skill, he screams into the silence of his room. He grumbles about making a promise with such a useless, ditzy goddess. He forces himself to think positively, despite the day's frustrating outcome. He now understands the cosmic hierarchy, lower goddesses and a higher god. He clenches his fist, determined to live for himself, not as their pawn. The ethereal child god, Felza, appears outside his window as he recognizes her name. He remembers his desperate, tearful plea to the goddesses. In the end, he obtained a skill to communicate with the divine beings. A new chapter begins, titled To a New Hunting Ground. At a street stall, Loki orders a skewer for his trip to the plains. The kind vendor notes his hard work, but asks if he's all right, seeing his fatigue. Loki puts on a brave face and cheerfully takes the offered food. He internally seethes, lamenting the precious time wasted on the goddesses. He recalls the awkwardness at the church after the job selection fiasco. He mutters that thanks to the goddesses, his day was a complete disaster. Walking through town, he is struck by the bustling morning activity. A large covered wagon is loaded with crates, preparing for a long journey. The town central market is already alive with vendors and early shoppers. Chewing on a skewer stick, he notes the liveliness near the north gate. A merchant cheerfully calls out to customers from behind his produce stall. He walks through the crowd, thinking this fantasy world feels truly real now. He spots a party of 3 adventurers heading out from a gate. He decides to playfully follow them to get a tour of the Locker Plains. He stands at the edge of the vast plains, ready to begin his hunt. Loki walks the plains, noting monsters are easy to find, but worries about kill stealers. He looks out over the vast, empty landscape, confirming he is indeed all alone. Spotting movement in the grass, he resolves that he has no choice but to hunt solo. With a wide, determined grin, he brandishes his sword, ready to begin the hunt. A game-like interface appears, pitting Loki against an mantis. He'll test its abilities first. The mantis is poised among the blades of grass. Loki thinks he has it spotted. With a sudden rustle, the camouflaged creature quickly shifts its position and vanishes. Loki stares at the empty spot, annoyed by the monster's effective protective coloring. He narrows his eyes, focusing his senses to pinpoint the hidden creature's location. His spirit perception skill activates, revealing the monster's glowing energy. He's found it. As long as he knows its position, he can land a decisive blow. He activates lunge, his body blurring as he shoots forward with incredible speed. With a triumphant shout, he slices cleanly through the mantis in a single strike. He then faces a poison mouse, knowing he must kill it quickly to avoid its swarm. The creature leaps and spits poison. Loki realizes it's much faster than he expected. He screams in panic, his forward momentum making it impossible for him to stop. A stream of black poison splashes across his face with a sickening sound. As he tumbles backward, a notification announces he has acquired poison resistance, LV.1. Lying upside down, a second notification immediately follows, upgrading the skill to LV.2. He pushes himself up, utterly confused as to how he leveled up twice so quickly. He decides one encounter isn't enough. He needs to test this phenomenon further. He eyes a nearby group of poison mice, a new theory forming in his mind. The scene shifts, showing the sturdy, timber-framed exterior of the Hunters Guild. Inside, the guild's butcher is seen at his station, ready for the day's work. The butcher counts Loki's haul, noting one of the 21 mice has a damaged sack. He asks if the cleanly stabbed mouse was Loki's first, joking about his shaking hands. The butcher then asks if Loki is planning to tackle the dangerous Rolf Forest next. Loki reflects that the easy mantis fights in Palmyra may have made him overconfident. He pauses for a moment, a flash of insight crossing his features. He remembers the importance of not straying from a safe and steady path. Overconfidence in games, he recalls, often leads to players losing everything they've gained. He assures the smiling butcher that he won't advance until he feels strong enough. The butcher laughs, warning that the orcs in Rolf Forest would send him flying. He clarifies it's not just about strength. Going to Rolf solo is simply unprofitable. Loki immediately understands that it's an issue of carrying capacity for the loot. The butcher explains that valuable orc meat is too heavy for one person to transport. Loki promises to think carefully about his next move before making any decisions. The butcher playfully taps him, telling him to put up with the receptionist for now. The receptionist calls out that the payment is ready as Loki waits by the door. He glances over and recognizes the party of hunters he saw earlier. He overhears them celebrating their earnings and planning a well-deserved 2-day rest. Loki calculates that he could live comfortably on the local standard of 15,000 BQ a day. He briefly considers a party, but dismisses it, seeing only downsides to sharing rewards. He needs to find porters and wonders if anyone like that even exists here. The biggest problem, he concludes, is that his goal of pure strength differs from others. Suddenly, the hunter Kogan slams his hand down on the reception counter. He demands to know when Loki formed a party, calling him Amanda's favorite brat. A nearby receptionist whispers about the recent rumors surrounding the promising new rookie. Kogan looks over at Loki with an expression of pure, condescending boredom. 4 days later, Loki is back on the plains, carefully studying his status screen. He recalls how getting poisoned by the mouse was the reason he acquired his new skill. He discovers that fighting monsters in a specific area grants a 20% experience bonus. He theorizes that the native poison mice must naturally possess high poison resistance. He decides it's more efficient to grind his skill levels now for an easier future. He sighs in frustration, lamenting the inefficiency of not having a stationary hunting spot. He remembers the grisly sight of monsters cannibalizing each other's corpses. Because of this, he can never leave his kills unattended for even a moment. A small diagram illustrates the tedious 2-hour round trip from the plains to Bizarre. He clenches his fists and yells, desperate to hunt in one place for efficiency's sake. He looks at the horizon, wishing he had a high platform to store his basket. An idea strikes him as he remembers the earth magic skill he acquired. He decides to try a simple chant shouting, "Mound of Earth." To his surprise, a small, lumpy pile of dirt rises at his feet. Checking his status, he sees his mana has been spent, confirming the magic worked. He flashes back to his pathetic and fruitless attempts to use fire magic. He tries again, stomping his foot for emphasis and commanding the earth to rise. A much larger mound erupts, and he stares in disbelief, realizing it's real. He understands now that the verbal incantation, not gestures, is the trigger for magic. With a focused glint in his eye, he decides to test his new theory. He shouts, "Lots of earth," and an even more massive mound swells from the ground. He notes that simply increasing the volume of earth isn't enough to stop monsters. His status screen shows the larger mana cost associated with the more powerful spell. He wonders if he can specify the shape of his creation and prepares to test it. His attempt to create many stone pillars results in short, crumbly, and useless stumps. He realizes trying to create a single, thick, long pillar might fail if he gets too greedy. A confident smile spreads across his face as he begins to grasp the key to incantations. A diagram illustrates how keywords can be combined to create specific magical effects. He puts his new knowledge to the test, chanting to generate a long stone pillar. A massive stone monolith thrusts into the sky as he lets out a roar of triumph. "I did it!" He cheers, realizing he has mastered this world's magic and solved his problem. He then looks up at his basket, stranded atop the pillar, wondering how to get it down. Back at the guild, Loki sheepishly apologizes, thinking he caused the mouse population boom. The butcher smiles, reassuring him that while he was a trigger, it's not his fault. Loki is flustered, unsure how to respond to the butcher's straightforward kindness. The butcher, sweating in disbelief, confirms the massive A-rank haul of mice and mantises. Loki confidently asks if there's an even bigger haul he could bring in next time. A title card appears, stating that the way to handle the rules is simple. An unseen voice advises that it is better to ask for what you want directly. In a flashback, Eugen recalls being burdened by his parasitic, useless co-workers. In his office, Guildmaster Yargoth explains the rule against hunters interfering with one another. Kogan explodes in anger, demanding to know why Yargoth is siding with a cocky kid. Yargoth calmly replies that he isn't siding with anyone, having heard both arguments first. Loki thinks to himself that he is truly grateful for Yargoth's presence. As Kogan curses, Yargoth explains his desire to avoid any situation where people might die. Loki, sitting calmly on the bench, asks the Guildmaster what he means by that. Yargoth explains the worst-case scenario. A fight with Loki could cause many hunter casualties. Kogan scoffs, finding it ridiculous that Yargoth is worried about a single kid. Yargoth coldly retorts that this poor risk management is precisely why they're still F rank. He turns to Loki, noting his abnormal hauls, and asking if he realizes he's not ordinary. Kogan grunts, sweating as the chilling implication of Loki's true power sinks in. Loki smirks, realizing Yargoth's harshness was just a calculated test of his character. The terrified hunter stammers that they never meant to act with any hostility. A flashback shows them trying to recruit him, steal his loot, and frame him. Yargoth coldly informs them their disgraceful actions mean their hunter careers are now over. The three hunters are horrified as Yargoth announces their permanent expulsion from a guild. Yargoth scolds them, saying they were lucky to avoid being branded as slavers. The hunter leader despairs, lamenting how he never imagined things would get this serious. Yargoth offers to find them other work, reminding them they were lucky to escape slavery. Yargoth declares the matter settled, then turns to ask if Loki is satisfied. Loki smiles coldly, declaring that this lukewarm punishment is nowhere near enough for him. Yargoth looks on with surprise and intrigue, questioning Loki's dissatisfaction. Loki clarifies that their punishment is the guild's business. He demands his own compensation. The hunter is shocked, realizing Loki is demanding a separate and personal apology. They plead for mercy, citing marriage plans, but Loki coldly states he doesn't care. Loki suggests they should have considered the risks before they decided to cross him. Loki explains he is no hero and has been barely suppressing his immense rage. His face twists in fury, declaring he's seen countless scum just like them before. The hunters are terrified, realizing they are about to reap what they have sown. He warns this isn't a game. Cross him again and he'll make them regret it. Yargov warns him not to push too far, but Loki welcomes the chaos. Loki taunts them, welcoming any attempt at revenge so he can hunt them down. Grinning with terrifying malice, he admits he is barely restraining his desire to kill. The three hunters are completely broken by his threat, sweating in absolute terror. They bow, begging for forgiveness and offering him all of their money and gear. The disgraced hunters are escorted out of the office, their careers now completely over. Yargov stands alone by the window, silently reflecting on the intense confrontation. Loki approaches the silent guild master from behind, hesitantly starting to speak. Loki thanks Yargov for his help, offering a pouch as a nuisance fee. Yargov opens the pouch, revealing the several potion vials clinking inside. Yargov questions Loki, asking if these extreme methods are his version of common sense. Loki admits going too far, but despises villains who casually harm other people. Yargov accepts, wryly noting that Loki's recklessness will surely get him killed someday. Yargov hands the surrendered items to Amanda, telling her to hold on to them. Loki asks Amanda to give the potions to the kids, but she offers to buy them. Loki smiles warmly, explaining that he is deeply indebted to the three children. Amanda smiles, remarking on Loki's strange kindness before agreeing to his request. Yargov muses on Loki's progress, noting his caution is a necessary hunter trait. Yargov's expression remains serious and calculating as he continues his private thoughts. Yargov warns him to be careful, quoting a proverb about standing out. Loki agrees, but confidently states he has no intention of being hammered down. Yargov lets out a small, thoughtful sound, intrigued by Loki's defiant response. Yargov smiles, revealing he understood Loki's Japanese using his own special skill. Loki is shocked, realizing Yargov quoted the one Japanese proverb he knows. Loki panics, wondering if Yargov deliberately spoke Japanese just to test him. Yargov explains his long-held suspicions about Loki have finally just been confirmed. Yargov stands over Loki and directly asks him if he is an otherworlder. A close-up on Loki's wide, shocked eyes shows his secret has been exposed. Loki defensively insists he means no harm and only wants to take a quest. Loki narrows his eyes, asking Yargov what he intends to use him for now. Yargov offers him a staggering 1 million bhikkhu fee for the special request. Loki is suspicious of the high pay, but Yargov calls it a welcome bonus. Yargov smiles slyly, formally asking if Loki will accept his generous offer. Loki agrees to the job, saying he is interested and will take the day off. Yargov is pleased, telling Loki to meet him at the guild tomorrow at noon. Loki stands before the guild, Yargov's words of anticipation echoing in his mind. Loki looks up at the imposing guild building, his expression determined yet wary. Loki sweats, admitting to himself that he is truly terrible at dealing with Yargov. A sudden, high-pitched, ringing sound catches Loki's attention, stopping him in his tracks. The voice of Regal, the goddess of war, suddenly speaks inside Loki's mind. Regal asks why he hasn't used his skill, saying the goddesses are waiting. The goddess's voice fades from his mind, bidding him a simple farewell for now. Loki clutches his head, cursing his apparently useless divine communication skill in frustration. He realizes this is a good opportunity to ask the goddesses his burning questions. Walking back to his inn, he resolves not to repeat his previous mistakes. He meditates, checking the status of his newly leveled up oracle skill. He calls out using his skill, and a cheerful voice immediately greets him. The goddess Farron excitedly introduces herself, delighted they can finally talk longer. A chibi goddess complains in the background that there is nothing else to do. The serious goddess Listi interrupts, asking Loki the purpose of his call. Listi explains they can read his thoughts, which Loki finds very impressive. Loki expresses his great relief that a calm, rational goddess exists among them. He's completely smitten by her cool, intelligent, and non-condescending demeanor. The voice of Farron shouts in annoyance, telling the others to be quiet. Loki sheepishly apologizes for his distraction and returns to his original question. He explains his magic struggles, asking the goddesses why it suddenly started working. He remembers his magic finally started working the day after he visited the church. Farron cheerfully suggests that it might simply be because he is a reincarnator. Leasty explains that spirits consume a caster's mana to perform magic for them. He realizes he couldn't use magic because he was completely unaware of the spirits. Leasty confirms this is likely, as spirits are dependents of the gods themselves. He realizes he might never have used magic if he hadn't met the goddesses. Farron's voice cuts through his thoughts, noting that his mind has gone blank. Loki snaps out of it, sheepishly apologizing for his distracting internal monologue. He thanks them sincerely, saying their explanation has made him feel much better. He recalls the butcher's warning that hunting large orcs solo is not profitable. He understands the core problem is simply the immense weight of the monster materials. He asks the goddesses if he can inquire about a specific skill he wants. He fantasizes about having an item box or inventory, just like in his games. He asks about spatial magic, and Leasty reveals she gave it to other Otherworlders. The connection breaks at the crucial moment, and he curses the skill's short duration. He sighs in frustration, annoyed at being cut off at the most important part. He realizes the goddess's information is vital and anticipates tomorrow's events at the guild. He feels a thrill of excitement, sensing the main story is finally starting to move. A sudden rumbling sound shakes the porch, startling him out of his thoughts. A strange energy swirls around him as he feels his consciousness start to fade away. His hand falls limp as his body dissolves into shimmering particles of light. A flashback shows his old belief that interacting with random people is a waste of time. He remembers his old philosophy that being alone was always the easier path to take. He snaps back to reality inside the guild, hearing a familiar voice call out to him. Misa, Jink, and Pata run towards him with bright smiles, happily calling his name. Loki is left utterly speechless, his mouth hanging open in pure, disbelieving shock. Farron eagerly suggests telling him everything, but Felza calmly has a question first. Still reeling from the impossible situation, Loki nervously stammers out his compliance. Felza then asks him if he is familiar with a world called Earth. He confirms that Earth is indeed his home world, his voice tight with suspicion. Felza confirms her suspicions, as Loki demands to know the relevance of this. Farron reveals the truth. Felza manages Earth, her #1 success story.